"Excuse me, but this is a myth," said SportsCenter host Richard Thompson, looking directly at LeBron James. Tension in the studio suddenly rose. "The claim that you have high basketball intelligence is a myth created by your marketing team. The data shows you play with just average basketball IQ, but extraordinary physical abilities." The live broadcast crew exchanged nervous glances. These words weren't planned for the program. James, instead of getting angry as expected, pulled out a tablet from his bag and turned it on. "I'd like to show you something, Mr. Thompson," he said in a calm voice. This simple sentence would mark the beginning of a moment that would forever change Thompson's career. For exclusive behind-the-scenes stories that change sports history, subscribe now to our Famous Stories Untold channel. SportsCenter's Legends Talk segment had long been one of ESPN's flagship programs. Each week featuring a famous sports figure, the program was known for its in-depth analysis and intimate conversations. This week's guest was NBA living legend LeBron James. In this normally carefully planned and prepared special segment, something unexpected was about to happen. Richard Thompson, 39, was a rapidly rising star in sports journalism. A former college basketball player, Thompson was known for his analytical approach and sharp questions. In recent years, however, he had adopted an increasingly controversial and confrontational style to boost ratings. Critics said his telling it like it is persona was actually just a tactic chasing ratings. Still, the strategy had worked. Thompson's program had the highest ratings among sports talk shows. LeBron James needed no introduction. At 38, with 4 NBA championships, 4 NBA MVP awards, and 18 All-Star selections in his career, James was considered not just the greatest of his generation, but one of the greatest basketball players of all time. James was also known for his intelligence off the court and his business success. He had built a billion-dollar empire with his production company, investments, and social justice initiatives. The program began as usual with Thompson introducing James and summarizing his career achievements. The first 10 minutes passed with polite questions and videos of memorable moments from James's career. The studio crew and producers had relaxed. Everything was going according to plan. But in the 12th minute of the program, Thompson's tone suddenly changed. "LeBron, your basketball IQ is constantly praised throughout your career," said Thompson, with a hint of sarcasm in his voice. "But my team and I have analyzed all your critical games from the last 10 seasons. Actually, the data shows that your basketball IQ isn't at the genius level that directs the league." Everyone in the studio froze. Producer Jennifer Lawson shouted through Thompson's earpiece, "Rich, this question wasn't in the prep. What are you doing?" But Thompson, focused on James's reaction, ignored the producer's warnings. There wasn't the slightest sign of discomfort on James's face. He just smiled slightly and took a sip of his water. Thompson continued, "For example, in your last playoff series during critical fourth quarters, your decision-making speed was behind that of an average player in the league. Your passes were predictable, and opposing defenses could easily read you. Do you think this deserves the basketball genius label?" Cameras zoomed in on James. Most superstars would react angrily to such an attack, but James remained calm. "Mr. Thompson," said James, his voice completely calm and measured, "I appreciate your interest in basketball analysis. However, how data is interpreted and which metrics are used is very important." Thompson was expecting James's diplomatic answer. Most athletes would respond to such criticism with general statements, but James pulled a tablet out of his bag. "I'd like to show you something, Mr. Thompson," said James as he opened the tablet. "If we really want to talk based on analytical data, we should use the right data." Tension in the studio increased. Thompson hadn't expected James to pull out a tablet. Producer Lawson's voice echoed again in Thompson's earpiece. "Rich, the situation is getting out of control. Stop him and go to commercial." But Thompson, still very confident, said, "Of course, LeBron, let's see what you have to show. But remember, numbers don't lie." James asked a technician to help connect his tablet to the studio's main screen. Within seconds, a complex basketball court diagram and a series of graphs appeared on the screen. "This is from a project I presented at the MIT Sloan Sports Analytics Conference last year," said James, pointing to the screen. "It's almost impossible to measure basketball IQ with traditional metrics. Because basketball IQ isn't just about numbers, but about court vision, reading the opponent's defensive scheme, and optimizing your teammates' strengths." Thompson frowned slightly. "What do these things you're showing mean?" James smiled. "Now I'm going to show you how real basketball analysis is done." James opened a series of game footage from the last playoff series on the screen. "These are the fourth quarter plays you mentioned, but what your analysis team missed is this. I analyze the opponent team's defensive schemes before each game. James paused a play on the screen and began drawing lines on it. Look, here the opponent team appears to be doing a 3-2 zone defense, but it's actually a trap. The player in the corner is deliberately left open because according to statistics, he shoots only 27% from that corner. Thompson's eyes widened. James was breaking down defensive schemes like a professional analyst. So my slow decision here was actually a conscious decision to avoid falling into the trap, James continued. Instead of passing, I waited for the defense to complete its rotation and found its weak spot. James showed several more plays, explaining how defenses changed in each one, and the logic behind his strategic decisions. Basketball IQ isn't just about making quick decisions, it's about making the right decision, even if it takes a little more time. The atmosphere in the studio had completely changed. Thompson was beginning to realize that the man in front of him wasn't just a physical athlete, but also someone who understood the sport at its deepest level. But James wasn't finished yet. Now let's address the topic of predictable passes, he said, and opened another data set. This is my pass distribution in critical games over the last 3 seasons. As you can see, when under pressure, I distribute my passes to 5 different positions, almost equally making it difficult for the defense to predict. James explained the graph in more detail. Moreover, traditional statistics don't measure the concept of potential assist, situations where I pass to a teammate in a good position but they miss the shot. When we account for this metric, I led the league in potential assists last season. Thompson looked at his notes, trying to find a counter-argument. What about your turnover rate? You lose the ball in critical moments. James shook his head. Good point, but an incomplete analysis, he said and showed a new graph. This is my risk-reward ratio. Yes, I sometimes lose the ball, but 72% of these risky passes result in either a score or an offensive rebound. Mathematically, this risk is worth taking. Program producer Lawson was no longer trying to warn Thompson. She, like everyone else in the studio, was amazed by James's detailed analysis. The hashtag #BasketballGenius had already started trending on social media. Thompson decided to change his strategy. Well, do you deny the advantage of your physical abilities? After all, you're 6'9" with extraordinary athletic abilities. James smiled. I absolutely use the advantage of my physical abilities. Why wouldn't I? But that doesn't mean I don't use my basketball intelligence. James opened another data set. Here are the physical advantage utilization and tactical decision metrics for me and other stars in the league. As you can see, my rate of using physical advantages is 65%, while other superstars in the league rely on their physical advantages at an average rate of 78%. Thompson tried to question the source of the data. Where do these analyses come from? Who prepared them? I prepared them, James said simply. I'm working on a side project in sports analytics at MIT. For the past 3 years, I've been conducting research on how to better measure game understanding with numerical data. A wave of astonishment spread through the studio. Few people knew that LeBron James wasn't just a basketball superstar, but also a data scientist. Also, James continued, basketball IQ isn't just about individual decisions but also about team dynamics. This is my team impact score metric, which shows how you optimize your team's strengths. James opened a graph showing different periods of his career. In my transitions from Cleveland to Miami, then back to Cleveland and then to Los Angeles, I had to adapt to completely different team structures. In each team, I changed my game according to different playing styles and teammates' abilities. Thompson was beginning to realize he was facing a world of basketball analysis he had never seen before. This is very impressive, LeBron. Why haven't you shared these analyses with the public before? James shrugged. I didn't feel the need to. I prefer to let my play on the court do the talking. But if someone questions my basketball IQ, I can respond with data. Thompson's defense strategy had collapsed. Now he decided to try a new approach. What about the emotional aspect of the game? When you're under pressure in critical moments, can you maintain this analytical thought process? James smiled, as if he had been expecting this question. Great question, he said, and opened a new file. This is a study showing my heart rate and decision-making metrics during the NBA Finals. As pressure increases, my decision-making processes actually become calmer and more analytical. On the screen appeared a graph showing James's body temperature, heart rate, and eye-tracking data. As you can see, in the most critical moments of the game, the last 2 minutes when the score difference is 5 or less, my eye scanning speed increases. This means I'm processing more information on the court. Thompson shook his head in amazement. How do you collect this data? I use wearable technology in my training sessions and in some games with special permission, James explained. eye tracking glasses, heart monitors, and thermal cameras. All this data helps me optimize my cognitive performance when under pressure. Everyone in the studio now fully realized that the man before them wasn't just a physical athlete, but also someone who understood the scientific aspects of the sport at the highest level. Thompson's aggressive approach had completely changed. Now he began asking questions with genuine curiosity. How do you integrate this data into your training? James began explaining the scientific aspects of his basketball training, from neurofeedback sessions to virtual reality simulations and sleep optimization. He supported each with scientific research aimed at improving basketball IQ. My brain is my most important muscle group, said James. I train mentally as much as I train physically. I memorize playbooks of opposing teams, analyze defensive schemes, and develop special strategies for each of my teammates' playing styles. James opened one last file on his tablet. This is my playbook against the Golden State Warriors in the last playoff series. It contains pre-planned responses for each defensive rotation. The file contained a detailed analysis of the strengths and weaknesses of each Golden State player, specific plays to use against them, and alternative plans for unexpected situations. This was the kind of strategic plan a chess master would prepare, rather than a basketball player. Wow, said Thompson, genuinely impressed. This level of preparation. Do all players in the NBA do such detailed analysis? James shook his head. Everyone finds their own method. This was my approach and it worked for me. Basketball IQ can't be measured in a single way. Each player has their own unique process of thinking and decision-making. The program had gone in a completely different direction than planned. Thompson's plan to corner LeBron James had turned into a platform where James could showcase his intellectual depth and basketball knowledge. Producer Lawson spoke into Thompson's earpiece. We have 5 minutes left, Richard. It's going great, keep going. Thompson decided to ask one more question. LeBron, at this stage of your career, how are you passing your basketball IQ on to the next generation? James looked emotional for the first time. This is very important to me. Right now I'm writing a book on basketball analytics, not just theory, but practical applications. Also, I've established a basketball academy that teaches young people the intellectual aspects of the game. James opened another screen on his tablet. This is the curriculum of my basketball IQ development program. We teach young people not just how to shoot or dribble, but also how to read the game, analyze defensive schemes, and optimize team dynamics. The program's curriculum was impressive. It included video analysis, decision-making exercises, tactical simulations, and even basic game theory. I believe that the future of basketball will be shaped not just by more athletic players, but also by smarter players, said James. Your physical abilities may diminish with age, but your basketball intelligence can continually develop. Thompson was deeply impressed by James's explanations. LeBron, thank you for everything you've shown us today. I take back my question about your basketball IQ. It's clearly not only not exaggerated but probably not appreciated enough. James smiled graciously. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Sometimes it's necessary to look beyond appearances to see the truth, in basketball as in life. As the program ended, one truth was now clear to Thompson. The man before him wasn't just one of the best athletes of his generation, but also one of the brightest minds in the sport. Thanks for watching this week's segment of SportsCenter's Legends Talk, said Thompson in closing. We extend special thanks to our guest LeBron James for giving us all a lesson in sports analytics and true basketball intelligence today. When the cameras turned off, applause broke out in the studio. Team members, technical staff, even the normally distant producers were appreciating James's performance. As Thompson removed his microphone, he approached James. LeBron, I'm sorry, I asked that question to belittle you and I was completely wrong. James put his hand on Thompson's shoulder. It's okay, Richard. Sometimes the best learning moments occur when our assumptions are challenged. I also learned something from your questions, how to better communicate my analyses. Producer Lawson joined them. LeBron, that was incredible. I've been working in sports journalism for 15 years, and I've never seen anything like it. When your book about basketball analytics comes out, would you like to do a follow-up program? James smiled. Gladly, Jennifer. I always love talking about basketball, especially the X's and O's. As the program ended, one truth was now clear to Thompson. The man before him wasn't just one of the best athletes of his generation, but also one of the brightest minds in the sport. Thanks for watching this week's segment of SportsCenter's Legends Talk, said Thompson in closing. We extend special thanks to our guest LeBron James for giving us all a lesson in sports analytics and true basketball intelligence today. When the cameras turned off, applause broke out in the studio. Team members, technical staff, even the normally distant producers were appreciating James's performance. As Thompson removed his microphone, he approached James. "LeBron, I'm sorry, I asked that question to belittle you and I was completely wrong." James put his hand on Thompson's shoulder. "It's okay, Richard. Sometimes the best learning moments occur when our assumptions are challenged. I also learned something from your questions, how to better communicate my analyses." Producer Lawson joined them. "LeBron, that was incredible. I've been working in sports journalism for 15 years, and I've never seen anything like it. When your book about basketball analytics comes out, would you like to do a follow-up program?" James smiled. "Gladly, Jennifer. I always love talking about basketball, especially the X's and O's." Thompson suddenly thought of a different idea. "Or maybe we could do something together. A basketball analytics series? I ask questions, you share your expertise." James looked thoughtful. "That could be interesting. A weekly segment exploring different aspects of basketball IQ. We could include players' perspectives too." As they left the studio, James and Thompson continued talking about the possible collaboration. The two men were planting the seeds of a new project together, with a completely different relationship. Just a few hours after the program, social media platforms were buzzing with James's basketball analysis show. The hashtag #BasketballGenius had become a worldwide trend on Twitter. Sports analysts were writing articles praising both James's on-court and analytical abilities. A leading basketball writer from The Athletic wrote, "What we saw today on ESPN wasn't just a superstar defending himself. It was an opportunity for us to understand the most mental aspects of the sport, a glimpse into the depths of the game." LeBron James proved he's not only one of the greatest basketball players in history but also one of the deepest analysts of the game. ESPN management called Thompson to their offices. The executives were initially concerned about his unprepared, aggressive question, but when the program's ratings were revealed, their concerns turned to excitement. The Legends Talk segment had achieved its highest viewership of all time. "Richard," said the head of content, "this was an unpredictable success. Your idea of doing a program with LeBron about basketball analytics is great. Let's start developing it immediately." A week later, ESPN and LeBron James's production company announced a new program called Beyond the Game: Basketball Intelligence with LeBron James and Richard Thompson. The program would explore the tactical and analytical aspects of basketball, hosting players, coaches, and sports scientists. When the first episode aired, 4.5 million viewers were watching, a record number for a basketball analysis program. As James and Thompson discussed basketball tactics and strategies in depth, viewers wanted more each week. The MIT Sloan Sports Analytics Conference invited James as the keynote speaker for their next conference. Harvard Business School developed a case study about James's approach to sports analytics. Young basketball players lined up to enroll in James's basketball IQ development program. For Thompson, this experience was a turning point in his career. He was no longer a host asking sensational questions, but a respected sports journalist conducting in-depth analyses. In an interview, he said, "LeBron James taught me a valuable lesson not just about basketball, but also about journalism. Sometimes the best stories emerge when you try to truly understand someone's strengths, rather than looking for their weaknesses." James has always focused on new projects. When his basketball analytics book was published, it rose to #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. His basketball academy began attracting young talents from all over the world. And on the court, James continued to demonstrate his mastery of the mental aspect of the game, still one of the league's most effective players despite his age. Perhaps the most important legacy of this event was the change it created in basketball perception. Now fans and analysts were appreciating not just athletic moves, but also players' decision-making processes, strategic understanding, and impact on team dynamics. Years later, in an interview with sports journalists, James shared his thoughts about that day. "That program was a turning point for me. It allowed people to see me not just as a physical athlete, but also as someone who understands the game at an intellectual level. Basketball isn't just a physical game, it's also a chess game. And I've always preferred to prepare both physically and mentally." Thompson remembered that day as the most important lesson of his career. "LeBron James taught me a valuable lesson about the danger of assumptions in sports. I learned that an athlete isn't just what you see. Sometimes there can be incredible depth beneath the surface." After that day, I approached every interview differently, not to question, but to understand. The Beyond the Game program continued for 5 successful seasons and introduced basketball analytics to wide audiences. Even after James's retirement, the program's legacy continued, A new generation of basketball players now prided themselves not just on their athletic abilities, but also on their basketball IQs. In the basketball world, that studio confrontation known as the Thompson moment became a case study in sports journalism. In sports communication classes, it was shown to students as a lesson about the dangers of assumptions and the importance of in-depth research. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like this video. If you're curious about the behind-the-scenes of unforgettable moments in the sports world, be sure to turn on notifications. See you in the next video.